This is B Dre. Now, I made my video a while back about Donald Trump and the comments that he's made, and a lot of people, for some stupid reason, are trying to convince me that he had some other meaning. And I've listened to his words verbatim. Essentially, within the first 10, 15 minutes of his speech, that's when he went off on this, I feel, racist and generalized tirade about Mexicans. And a lot of people try to say that he is basically talking about the border, but with his comments again, and I think it's best that I play the video because I'll let motherfuckers hear what he had to say word for word. That way they don't think that I'm embellishing or paraphrasing his words. So I've got everything queued up, and I'm just gonna start playing this now, and I'll kind of cut in and out uh, just to give my take. But here we go.
The U.S. has become a dumping ground for everybody else's problems. Thank you. It's true. And these are the best and the finest. When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're not sending you. They're not sending you. They're sending people that have lots of problems, and they're bringing those problems with us. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists.
So right there, I can understand if Donald Trump said some of the Mexicans that are coming over are doing these things. Some of them are drug dealers. Some of them are rapists. Some of them are drug dealers. But you heard from the horse's ass right here where he didn't say that. So he's basically lumping all Mexicans. Now, with the video that I made, and when you look at the side panel, when you go to my video as I'm discussing this, you'll see that there are people, Mexican nationals from Mexico, who are making videos. And you do have also American citizens of Mexican descent who have made a video to express their displeasure at what Trump said. And rightfully so, because it's a generalization. Uh, because for him to say they're bringing drugs, they're criminals, they're rapists, he's basically saying all of them that cross over are drug dealers, rapists, and criminals. And that's the problem. Let's continue.
And some, I assume, are good people.
So with this line right here, and some I assume are good people, that's like a racist being called out for saying, calling someone a nigger or some racial epithet, and then when asked about it, they try to go on the defensive and say, well, I got black friends, or I have friends of some other ethnic group that's not their own. So that's what I take from this comment. Trump is full of shit. And of course, when you listen to a lot of his interviews, he's talking about how he likes the Mexican people. They rent his rooms and they helped him to build all of the edifices, his hotels, his resorts and shit like that. But the truth is, he's used undocumented workers for that manual labor. Let's continue.
But I speak to border guards, and they tell us what we're getting.
That's bullshit. That's like a former Governor Rick Perry saying that he speaks to border guards. The truth of the matter is because I know some people that work for some of these facilities for the people that are crossing over, and there's a true story to be told about the treatment. Yes, there are some coyotes that are bringing them over, and they're asking for a large sum of money. They're making threats. They're actually killing some of the people, but they're also talking about some of the mistreatment from Border Patrol agents, treating them like they're less than the shit at the bottom of a shoe.
And it only makes common sense. It only makes common sense. They're sending us not the right people. It's coming from more than Mexico. It's coming from all over South and Latin America, and it's...
So he says they're coming from South and Latin America. Now, geography was one of my strong suits, but I can tell you there is no geographical, quote unquote, Latin America. You have North America, Mexico's the countries of Central America, and then of course you have South America, but neither one of them designates themselves as Latin Americas. None of those people or countrymen call themselves Latin Americans. So for someone that has all this money, you think that he would make a statement that's a bit more educated.
Coming probably from the Middle East.
Now, I can kind of understand with this comment here. You have some ISIS members, some members of terrorist groups from the Middle East who are going to Mexico and trying to cross into the U.S. side of the border to perpetrate the terrorist acts. There have been some findings, if true, and I'd like to believe that it probably is true, where they found some things from supposed members from terrorist groups that have crossed over illegally from the side of Mexico into the United States. But again, whenever American citizens commit crimes that live across or along the border states with Mexico and they want to get out of trouble, what do? They run into Mexico. You have American citizens with a sense of entitlement who cross over into Mexico, and with that sense of entitlement, they look for a lifestyle of debauchery and some of these shady towns in Tijuana and things like that. I know here in the Rio Grande Valley across the border is a place called Boys Town that some Americans go over to just to go to sex houses and things like that. So when you talk about Mexicans coming over and perpetrating or being criminals and rapists and things like that, think about the Americans that cross the border into Mexico just because they have the American dollar bill and they go over and they are criminals, rapists, and drug dealers because the supply of drugs that are coming from Mexico is to feed the need for Americans here. So if Americans didn't want the drugs, then that would put drug dealers in Mexico out of business, or they would have to seek their business elsewhere. So my video itself is not to endorse illegal Mexicans coming over into the United States and having children, things like that. That's something for the government to address. But that's something that has been going on for as long as I've been alive in my 44 years. But for Donald Trump to sit here and people give him a grand standing ovation because he made those generalized comments, that's why I made this video, is because Trump is wrong and people want to support that. And now you have this witch hunt against Mexicans. There have been stories out of Arizona where Minutemen have broken into the homes of U.S. citizens of Mexican descent with the assumption that they are here illegally and have perpetrated acts of violence against American citizens simply because they are Mexican. And that's the problem. And with these kind of words, you have a lot of people feeling more freely about speaking out against Mexicans and other non-whites and non-blacks who come over. But the truth is, when people think of illegal aliens, it's synonymous with Mexicans, when the truth is you have Asians that are coming over from Vietnam, China. You have English Europeans that are coming over that are here illegally. You have African nationals that are here illegally from across all walks of life, even north of the border in Canada. French Canadians that have crossed over into the United States are here illegally. But when it comes to people saying, let's keep the trash out, a lot of people try to equate that to keeping out Mexicans. But the funny thing is, when I've challenged people by asking them, do you know any Mexicans? Half the people don't know any Mexicans at all. They like to make a generalized statement because the truth is, if they got to know Mexicans, then they realize that Mexicans are no different than anybody else. They don't have to speak the language, but the ones that are here, they do those jobs that we as black people and white people consider menial. You don't see a lot of white people jumping in line to get that job where it's out in 110-degree weather, working out in the fields and things like that. That's what Mexicans do. You see some Mexicans on the roadside selling fruit. You don't see white people or black people doing that. So it pisses me off when I hear black people in particular say Mexicans are here taking over our jobs, because and it makes me want to say, I don't see your black ass sitting out or trying to get those jobs. Mexicans wanting to do yard work and things like that. They do that for pennies on a dollar, and for them, that's a king's wealth to them, as far as them trying to support their family. And again, this video isn't about endorsing Mexicans coming over illegally. What I'm saying is, I'm not going to treat a Mexican that's coming over any differently than I would treat someone that lives here in the United States. Because, one, I don't know their walk of life. The truth is, if you think that Mexicans are coming over here and they are leeches because they're having their kids here stateside, think about the black people and the white people and the Mexicans and other ethnicities that are here living off of public assistance and refuse to get a fucking job. If that's the case, if we need to get the leeches out of the country, then shouldn't we deport those U.S. citizens who are taking advantage and exploiting the system? That is the question. But a lot of people don't think of it that way. Because I've known a lot of people who take advantage and exploit public assistance and refuse to get a job. And they sell the Lone Star cards and the welfare and their food stamps and things like that, and so that they can go out to the clubs and buy booze and other shit instead of taking care of the family. That's U.S. citizens, and that's that sense of entitlement that I'm talking about. There are some Mexicans that cross over and do dirt, but that doesn't make us any cleaner, because there's a lot of people here in the United States, U.S. citizens, that are just as fucking dirty. Anyway, if you like this video, hope that you like, subscribe, and share. Don't forget to check me out on Facebook. Peace.